For this trip, I took Highway 168 south from Virginia and then over the Wright Memorial Bridge in the northern part of North Carolina. The goal would be to drive the entire length of the Outer Banks, a series of islands and island communities along the North Carolina eastern shore. The day was bright and sunny, but a chilly wind made it seem even more colder than the 50 degrees it was that day. It was Wednesday, November 18th, 2020, at about 2 p.m. Now you can drive the entire Outer Banks in about 2 hours. It's only 93 miles. We're going to begin at the top in Corolla, a small community as far north as you can get in the Outer Banks. By the end, we're going to wind up way down here on Cedar Island, back on the mainland. We'll see some cool stuff along the way. The Outer Banks is actually a series of island chains. The northernmost part isn't really an island per se, as it's connected to the mainland. This part is called the Currituck Banks. We're here in Corolla, and south of that's a community of Duck. We're going to drive south and see those two first. At the top of Corolla is an isolated beach where you can drive your car, but south of that it's pretty isolated. There's only a few hundred homes up here, spread out over 10 miles. Homes here on average cost $600,000. We'll drive this for a minute. Now south of Corolla, we take an isolated stretch to the next community, Duck. Now we come to Duck. South of Corolla, this is the first community that's on what's called Bodie Island, which stretches all the way down for about 27 miles. Duck has much more to do than Corolla does. There's about 580 people here, and homes cost $100,000 less than in Corolla, at about $480K each. After Duck, heading south, you come to a community called Southern Shores, which has close to 3,000 people. It's pretty isolated as well. Now south of Southern Shores, you make the turn and begin heading down Bodie Island. This begins the main stretch where most of the tourists go. There's much more to do here, south of Southern Shores, for people who visit the Outer Banks. We're going to turn left off the main drag, which is called Highway 158, and head along the coast on Highway 12 for a bit, and drive towards Kitty Hawk. Now in 2019, the Outer Banks set a record for tourism and for home sales and for rentals. Most folks on the island were excited about that, as businesses were able to extend their normal operating hours beyond mid-fall when many of them began to shut down. But then in 2020, due to COVID, rentals, home sales, and tourism broke a record again. Many people who own second homes here use these islands as a COVID refuge, and folks rented homes here in record numbers too, again, as a safe vacation where they could social distance. In the peak season, large 6 or 7 bedroom homes like this rent for 10 grand a week. In the off season, they go for about 2,500 a week, and most of these, if not all of them, were filled this year. Now here we are along the coast in Kitty Hawk, a community of 3,500 people. Just on the other side of those homes is the ocean. Homes here in Kitty Hawk average about $380,000, but along the coast, near the ocean on the left, they're much more expensive, closer to $450,000 or $500,000. After about 3 miles along the coast, you come to Kill Devil Hills. They basically look the same. Now to show you the main drag again, we're going to rejoin Highway 158. Now we're into the heart of the entertainment section of this stretch of the Outer Banks along Bodie Island. As you can see, there's all sorts of businesses and shops along this stretch. Now we're going to skip over and rejoin Highway 12 again along the shore, where it's much more isolated. Now we're going to drive along the coast to Nags Head. Nags Head looks basically the same as Kitty Hawk and Kill Devil Hills. There's about 3,000 people in Nags Head proper. As you leave Nags Head and you get towards the end of Bodie Island, things get pretty isolated. That's pretty much it in terms of the large number of hotels, restaurants, shops, and most of the homes. Eventually, you come to a bridge where you can take Highway 64 and head over to another island which is part of the Outer Banks, Roanoke Island. Much of Roanoke Island is made up of the town of Manteo, which has about 1,400 people in it. This is where the first colonists lived when they first came to America way back in 1585. Today it has a few stores to cater to the locals, but most of it's a small, cute village with shopping. Homes here average about $300,000. Then we're going to cross back over the bridge again and leave Roanoke. We're going to continue south and then leave Bodie Island completely. It's really isolated down here. And after driving for a while, you cross another bridge over to Hatteras Island. The northern section of Hatteras is really isolated. There's actually nothing up here at all, and it's so narrow, the sand blows across the road and it washes out, even during minor storms. So there's constant road maintenance. Further down Hatteras Island, there's 3 really small communities called Rodanthe, Waves, and Salvo. They all pretty much look the same. In total, there's only about 250 people on this stretch of the island, where they pay about $330,000 for a home. After you drive south for about 15 minutes, you come to the bottom of Hatteras Island, which includes the communities of Buxton and Hatteras. Way down here is very different from the rest of the Outer Banks. This is the end of the road, and there's a distinct change in the mood and vibe. This is much more laid back. Homes are far less gaudy, and it resembles something more like a rustic Midwest town than an isolated beach town in North Carolina. And down here, homes are far cheaper too, at about $260K. There's also a lighthouse here. Inside those homes are the caretakers of the lighthouse. Pretty big homes when all you have to do is change out a light bulb. Now at night here way down at the end of Hatteras, it's really desolate. There's only one road all the way back up north, and it's a long, dark, narrow road at that. You definitely feel like you're on a deserted island when it's at night here. After exploring for a bit, it was time to trudge back through the omnipresent sand and get back to the room. However, the hotel door keys weren't working, and the office staff wasn't around or answering their phone. So I took the maid key so I could get back into my room. Thanks, Maleta. Now from Buxton, you head west to the end of the island to the community of Hatteras. Here in Hatteras, there's about 500 people, depending on if it's the busy season. This is the end of the road. Or is it? To get off of Hatteras and back to the mainland, you catch a ferry over to Ocracoke Island, about halfway back to the eastern North Carolina shore. It takes about an hour on the ferry. Then you get off the ferry and you're on Ocracoke Island. The beginning of the island's very isolated. It takes about 15 minutes to get from the ferry into the village of Ocracoke. Now we're in Ocracoke. The population here on this island is about 550 permanent residents, but during the peak of the tourism time in the summer, many thousands flock here each week. A home here is a steal at $120,000, but there's only one way on and off this island, and that's by boat. Plus, storms wreak havoc on this community, meaning your home is one bad weather event away from being lost for good. To leave Ocracoke, you hop on another ferry and take that 2.5 hours all the way back to Cedar Island. And now you're back onto the North Carolina mainland. And that's the end of our journey from the top to the bottom of the entire Outer Banks. Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great! You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more. You can also now buy my songs on iTunes and other formats. Click the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and remember, while we all might have different views, we should all be nice to each other and try to make the U.S. a better place in a positive way.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.